Road to the Rail.
Road to the Rail, episode 2, right?
Welcome. As you can see, we don't have Jack.
Jack is not here. He is out, so I will be sitting in for Jack.
And tell him who you are for the folks who probably already know.
Well, howdy, folks. My name is Adam Laser, and I'm the sideline reporter for the last 2 Race for the Rails, which is a huge honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do a damn good job at it, too, I must say.
I appreciate that, Ted. You know, it had always been a life dream to do some sort of like sideline reporting, and always looked up to like Salema Masekela from the X Games, Jack Matrani, who we know, like those are people that I always was like, that looks like a sweet job when I was younger, and to kind of dive into it as part of my job is
just chatting with your friends too.
Just chatting with our friends, watching some insane one-wheel racing.
So this week's episode, what we'll be covering are the racers who will be coming out to Race the Rail.
Who made it.
And we're going to also, bring in a few different surprises and developments of the race. So you want to get into it?
Yeah, I think I'm excited this year. I mean, you guys covered a lot about what to expect, and let's talk about these riders, because quite honestly, maybe half or more than half of these riders have never competed at Race for the Rail before.
That's true. We have quite a few new faces, mm-hmm. and we're quite excited to see how they stack up on this border cross style. You know, a lot of the racing that was done for the regionals was all time trial based racing, and this year's gonna be different. Or not this different, but this race is different than the regional qualifiers, being that it is a border cross race, which we said last week. So we will see how these riders do.
Yeah, I think that's important for people to know, that the border cross style, as we mentioned last week, is the ultimate Race for the Rail style of race. We were fortunate enough to run these ORL regional qualifiers with some local organizations that were putting on races themselves. So we kind of had to be flexible and format our racing structure to what they had created their racing structure for. So it's not going to be time trial based like you saw at the Eastern, Central, and Western qualifiers. It's straight up head to head.
And that's where I think you get a little bit more action, because you see that rider right next to you and you know, okay, well, I'm not thinking about seconds here and maybe I'm a second faster. Homeboy's in front of you, homegirl, and you gotta punch on the gas.
Yeah, and to quote you from last week, head-to-head one-wheel racing is the best type of one-wheel racing, particularly from a viewership standpoint.
Yes.
So let's dive into it, Ted. Let's talk about the women's field first.
Yeah, let's go for it. So this year we have a few, like we said, a few new faces, a few returning riders, starting with Zoe Thomas. And I'm working down my doc that I have here, and you'll know why I'm doing this towards the end of this episode. But right now, I'm not going to get that far into it. Zoe Thomas, racing out of Delta, Utah. She had the women's fastest time of Race for Rail 2020, and she placed 3rd at the Western Regional Qualifiers. She is 16 years old, and she's one of the fastest female one-wheelers.
Yeah, not only one of the fastest, but one of the younger ones, and she's local to the race course. So that the terrain that we're going to see at Snow Basin is what Zoe specializes in. Yeah.
Following that up, we have Raquel McCosker. Now, Raquel could have potentially taken the Triple Crown
had she made it out to the East Coast.
If she made it out to the East Coast. But instead, they were at Seek and Tread Fest, which looked like a great time. But yeah, she placed also the 2nd fastest time, Race to the Rail 2020.
Mm-hmm. And she's been racing for a while too. Obviously, her and Jeff have been one-wheeling for a long time. Her husband Jeff and Raquel, I would probably consider her like a pioneer of women's one-wheel racing. She's been doing it for quite a while, and a lot of people don't know, but she's a multifaceted athlete. She, as far as I know, is a phenomenal wakeboarder.
Yes.
So I'm really interested to chat with her at the race about like the crossover between wakeboarding and one-wheel racing, and just like being one of the older riders there, having to go up against some of these like younger riders, what that's like to have a very like age group diversified field.
And defending champ as well.
And a defending champ.
So, you know,
Triple Crown next year, maybe. Who knows?
the achievements are high with
Yeah.
Raquel. Following that up, we have Rachel Payne coming out of Sherman, Texas. Rachel is one of those riders who's consistently on the top. She placed second on the Central Regional. She placed second again on the Eastern Regional. And unfortunately, last year we did not see her at the Race for Rail because she sustained an injury. But we're happy to have her this year. And, you know, Rachel Payne is always putting down good numbers. But I feel like when she comes up against competition sometimes, I think she's a little nervous and she gets a little shy. And that's where something like Zoe Thomas, who in her interviews is just like, I'm just going to send it.
Oh, that was sick. I remember that was, what was that, like 2019? I asked her, I was like, how did you do this?
Yeah.
She's like, I just sent it.
Yeah. And Rachel definitely still sends it, but she sends it in a more like reserved, calculated way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like all these riders ride a lot, but as far as I know, Rachel is, that's like something she really loves to do is one wheel all the time.
And Rachel and Nick Payne are also like staking out new trails out there in Arkansas. Yeah. And it's really rad to see them push the sport there in their local one wheeling like region. So anyways, moving on. Allison Stanley coming out of San Diego, also a consistent rider. She's making a name for herself in the ORL.
Yep.
New racer, but not new to the board sport. She placed third in the ORL Central Regionals along with the Eastern Regionals. Honestly, great overall rider. She's got a lot of tricks in the bag. She's constantly, you know, on the podium or near the podium. And I think she's feeling pretty confident going here to Race the Rail. It's also her first Race of the Rail, so.
Yeah, I mean, consistent through the qualifiers. A lot. She's got tons of board control as I would say like an accomplished trick one-wheel rider. So that will be really interesting to see how that plays into head-to-head racing.
Totally. And then after that, we have Gabby Soto, which is another younger rider, 15 years old.
Gabby is, I'm pretty sure, the youngest by date, the youngest rider at 15 years old.
Oh, really?
15 years
even
old.
With like Noah and Finn? Oh, wow. Good to know.
Yeah, it's 15 years old.
Yeah, she's placed in fourth Western Regional. She's come from Sacramento. She rides with the dead Manuel, Stoke spreader. And she's always riding with the float crew, and I think that's probably what helps her, you know, progression is just riding with the best.
Yeah, that's what's cool about all these folks is that while they're going to be competing against each other, they're always, like, you see it, like, people are riding in groups together, and it is, even if it's not in a race, it's constantly pushing you to go faster, and you kind of know that person's tricks. So like, how can I beat that person?
For sure. And what's different too about Gabby is like she's not riding. Actually, a lot of these women aren't riding together. They're kind of in their own little cliques, you know. So you don't really know until you get to the races how you stack up, even though they have raced like against each other in the ORL, but not head to head. So
that's true.
It'll be interesting.
That's very true.
Then we have Lindsay McKeever. And Lindsay McKeever made it into the Race of the Rail because she was the next best time on the Western Regional qualifiers. And the reason why this happened was because Chloe Kozlowski was the original bid. And Chloe Kozlowski, when it came down to doing the rider survey, figuring out who's going to be able to make it, who can't make it, she reached out to us saying, unfortunately, she's going to have to drop out because she had an ankle injury.
Ooh,
so then we had to go, because Chloe was getting that bid from the Western Regional qualifiers. One next to her that was not already qualified, if you're following me here, was Lindsay. Hit up Lindsay. She was super stoked. She said, oh, shiz.
Oh, shiz.
I can't believe it. And she's racing out of Grand Junction, Colorado. To be quite fair, I am very curious to see how, you know, like that out of, you call a wild card? That's a wild card.
That's a wild card. And what makes me most excited about that is like a lot of these names on the list we've seen at other qualifiers or we've seen throughout the years, up and coming folks now making a name for themselves as veterans. So I'm really excited to see what Lindsay pulls out of the bag because as we know last year, the wild card won Race for the Rail.
That's true.
So never count a wild card out.
No, not at all. And to be honest, she put down a quite impressive time for her first ORL race. Like to be the next person up.
Yeah.
And to be like someone that you're not affiliated with, like a certain group. You got a little burp on me.
Hey, let it out.
That's what you do when you're going live.
Going live.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Same, actually, another new face, which we already know from Bart Miller, the legend Bart Miller. Christy Miller.
Christy Miller.
Placed 4th place, Eastern Regional Qualifier, coming out of Tallahassee, Florida. First time racing, I'm pretty sure. And she was able to make the Eastern Qualifiers.
If so, I mean, it just shows how much this sport is progressing. And it's like anybody can go and anybody could try it because you never know how you're going to perform. It's still a new sport. It's a fresh sport. So,
or you could leave with the Western Regional Qualifiers like Lindsay McKeever thinking you don't make it.
Yeah.
And then get the call a month later. Yo,
what up?
Pack your bags. You're going to race the rail.
That's awesome.
And last, certainly not least, we have Rachel Cecil placing 1st place Eastern Regional Qualifiers out of Atlanta, Georgia. And
she crushed it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and say she crushed it. I have to look up the time, but I am almost certain that she had a faster time than like half the guys that made it into the top 8 at Easterns.
Wow. I wish I had the other doc pulled up with the times. We can confirm that, but we don't have our switcher guy in the back.
So. I am the switcher guy. I'm doing the audio levels over here.
But yeah, pretty stacked women's field here. We will see all of them throw down Friday, July 30th.
July 30th, 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time.
We had a conversation like an hour before this saying, we keep saying Mountain Standard Time. And to be quite fair, we could hardly keep track of Mountain Standard Time.
Yeah, I mean, and you could also kind of judge it by, we have this cheat sheet in front of us. There's a lot of West Coast folks.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of West Coast folks. So you can only imagine that there's going to be a lot of West Coast viewership. I mean, but hopefully that's spread all across the board. But that was what was so beautiful about this year is that people from all over the country had that opportunity, as you guys talked about last week. And hopefully, you know, we see some more viewership numbers go up in the middle of the country.
Yeah, and we also have some exciting news about the race that we probably shouldn't share yet, but the numbers will be broadcasted through a large audience.
Yes.
At a certain point.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
The way we're going to work this out is that you got to keep coming back for the surprises.
If we just told you all the sickest things, episode 1, you're like, all right, well, I already heard it all.
Yeah, why would I come back for episode 2 or episode 3?
I mean, I think at some point you might like to hear us just casual banter, but...
Maybe not, Ted.
Maybe not. Someone did say in the comments of the last one, oh, I love to hear Jack and Ted banter. And I was like, oh, it's sick.
Well, you guys, you know, Jack provides a very deep sport analytical approach, and you are definitely the color, making up some of the funniest names that I've heard of for features and corners and turns. I love it.
Well, we're here too. Let's talk about the men's.
Talk about the men's. So men's will be happening on Saturday, July 31st at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So both races, Friday and Saturday, will be happening at 5 p.m. for their respective.
You're saying daylight time because we're currently in daylight time?
That's what Google told me.
Okay. I don't really know. I just know it's still light by the time we leave this office. So
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Laser, take it away.
Oh, man. So let's start off with the 2020 Race for the Rail champion, Brendan Schurmeyer, also known as Floaty McFly, coming out of Los Angeles, California. He was one of the wild cards last year. Mm-hmm. And not only was he a wild card, but he took down two former Race for the Rail champions, which just made it so exciting to watch, to see somebody that, again, you're like, well, is this guy going to do good? And crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. He even came out to a couple of the races this year. I think he was at Central and Western, and he did pretty well.
Yeah, he was at Central and Western, and he placed 4th place in both of those races. So he's still hanging with the dogs, but I think he's taking it easy because he knows he already has that bid. Why try to go all out and potentially not make it to Race for the Rail?
But it shows something about his competitive nature inside. He's a calm, cool, collective dude.
Totally.
But I know he's got that little competitive dragon inside of him. Moving on to, I'm just gonna go and say Race for the Rail legend. This guy, if we had a Hall of Fame, he'd be in there, because Dave Stewart, aka Tahoe Dave, not only 2018 champion, but he got 2nd place in 2019, and he got 2nd place last year. And I'm not going to just go and blow his age, but he's like double the age of some of these riders, and he is still just as fast, if not faster than all of them.
I remember last year, I think it was day 2 of a Race for the Rail when we were doing the team challenges, and everyone was getting gassed. You know, he's like, I'm not too sure how much longer I'll be racing, you know. And then he comes out and just gets 2nd place. He's like, I think I still got it in me.
Yeah, I was doing the finish line interviews last year, and he, you know, I was all stoked up because it's like, Dave, you're in the finals. And he's like, yeah, you know, this might be my last year. You know, all these young folks and all that stuff. And I was just like, Dave, you are such a kind person, such a humble person. And I'm so glad that he has decided to come back this year.
Totally. Solid rider.
Yeah. Rolling into really like the wild card, Tyler James. So can you explain a little bit of how Tyler James made it into the lineup?
Yeah, so Tyler James was voted in by the 19 racers who who got a bid to Race the Rail. So when we sent out the survey, there was Tyler James, Isaac Koslowski, and Josh Ledford. I still love that nickname.
It sticks.
And essentially, at the end of the survey, Tyler James won by the hair of his chinny chin chin. He was like 1 vote away from Isaac to make it as a wild card.
Wow.
And you know, truth be told, he made it. I don't know if that's the right term to use, but anyways, Tyler made it. He's stoked. We're stoked to have him.
And it goes
quality dude.
Yeah, and it goes to show that if the riders voted him in, then you know that he's fast and he is going to bring the heat, because that's what a lot of folks were saying about who we have up next, Neil Bennett last year. If you remember last year, we kind of left it up to social media and, you know, the Onewheel community and the Onewheel audience, who goes to Race for the Rail. And you know, Jack mentioned it kind of turned into a popularity contest. And we heard from a lot of riders. Everybody was like, Neil Bennett and Austin Silva should have been there. Guess who's here this year? Those homies. So Neil Bennett won the ORL Central Regionals. He's out of Roseville, California. He's a mountain biker. The dude's fast as heck. And again, like, he's somebody that everybody said last year should have been there, had it not been left up to like who has the biggest social media presence, if that's really how it went down. And then next up is Bodie Harrison. Can't say anything bad about this dude. He's been at Race for the Rail for how many years?
Too many to count.
Too many to count. He finished 2nd in the Central Regional Qualifiers out in Eureka Springs. He's hailing out of Sacramento, California. And he got 2nd at Race for the Rail in 2018, 3rd in 2019. And this is my own personal opinion, nobody else's, but this dude is really like a pioneer of one-wheel tricks. Like, half the things I've ever learned, I learned from Bodie, which isn't much because I can't do much on tricks, but
your little curb nudges are getting pretty tasty though.
I learned it from a guy like him.
He also, I don't want to skirt over this, but he placed 5th for the Western Regional as well. So second in the Central qualifiers, fifth in the Western. So he was up there on both of those races.
Nice. And next is Ori Rush out of Mansfield, Ohio. I'm always going to remember that.
I don't know why, but I know exactly where Ori is from every time.
Yeah.
And I think it's because one year we asked him for a race of the rail.
Yeah,
I don't know why it was so monumental, but Mansfield, Ohio.
He's proud of it, and I don't blame him. I mean, like, you look at this list, and everybody's from, like, I mean, there's so many people from California and the West Coast. So you get somebody from Ohio, you got to represent. But
and so many of these people already ride together.
Yeah,
you know.
So
Ori's just like, oh yeah, I haven't seen you guys. Remember last year, Race of the Rail? He was like, Ohio's been too cold. I haven't ridden like all year.
And he crushed it. He did really well
Yeah.
for claiming that he hadn't ridden for a while. But so how did he get in? Because he is a wild card from the Central Regional Qualifier, Ted.
Yeah, so Central Regional was pretty stacked because just to go down the podium here, first place was Neil Bennett. He got a bid. Second place, Bodie Harrison. He had a bid. Third place was Austin Silva, who got a bid from Western Regional Qualifiers because he got first. This is a very tricky process. And again, like, this is the first year of the league, and I feel like we've done a great job with what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
there's always room. There's
small
always,
team.
Yeah, always room to improve. But essentially, Ori Rush got fifth in the Central Regional Qualifiers, but Brendan Schurmeyer already had a bid. Austin Silva got a bid from Western, so he was next up from that race to get the bid for the Central. If you follow me on that.
I follow you. And going into the folks that qualified from the Western Regional Qualifier, Austin Silva winning Western Regional Qualifiers. The dude had a pretty gnarly spill where he almost hit a tree.
Yeah.
At the Central Regional Qualifiers. And again, this is somebody that
Still placed third, though.
Still placed third after that spill. This is somebody that all the riders last year said should have been in Race for the Rail. And Austin came out after that spill at Central and just crushed it at the Western Qualifiers. Like, the dude, he rides the line all day, every day. So I'm really excited to see him. He's out of Garden Valley, California. And I think he could be a top contender for sure.
I forgot who I was talking to. Is either Austin or Neil. But they take racing very seriously, and they're always training together, riding, like, pushing the limit every day. And I think that's what really helped them get to where they're at here on the Race for Rail stack.
I mean, it's just like, even though it's a new sport and it's totally different than like any type of analog sport, I think if you can learn anything from normal sports, which is training, working hard, and being persistent about it and taking it seriously, you're going to get to the top.
Wasn't Austin previously racing dirt bikes or something like that?
I do recall when I was doing some filming up at the top of the Western Qualifiers, and I do recall him mentioning that he raced motocross for a little bit.
Because wasn't he even wearing
He wears a motocross helmet. He wears pretty
like
much
the half Alpine Star boot, though, right? Wasn't that? I'm pretty sure he was wearing some kind of flat Alpine Star boot.
We might have to double check the tape on that, but yeah, you could just he knows what to do. He knows how to progress himself and how to get better, and I'm excited to see what he does. Moving on to Jesse Turpin, second place at the Western Regional Qualifiers. Jesse is out of Kona, Hawaii, in that area. I want you to give
my gosh.
Go for it, Ted.
I had to zoom in for this. Kealakekua. Kealakekua.
There you go.
Kealakekua. Give me your shot. I know you got this.
Kealakekua, something like that.
I feel like that
it's
was
not
pretty
bad,
close,
but
yeah.
essentially like Kona area. And, he upset Dom at the Westerns, which was amazing to see because, like, this dude's only been riding for less than a year.
Totally.
So when you see somebody that is fresh to it, but has as much energy and passion as Jesse, and especially he's like the first person we've had at Race for the Rail that hasn't lived in mainland US.
Yeah, that's true.
So like, you got to travel. That's a commitment.
And he has the entire homies that travel with him for all these races, and it's so rad to see them.
Yeah, great support
hype each
coming
other
out of
up.
that crew.
Yeah. I was going to say pump and hype at the same time. It was Yeah.
Pump, tap, tap.
Pumped it up.
Pump up. Next up,
Noah Build.
Noah Build. I mean, here's a young kid, 16 years old.
Laser wrote a note. Great kid.
Great kid. I mean, every time I've seen him, he has a smile on his face.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. He's got third at Western Regionals, third at Eastern Regionals. He's coming all the way from Florida. So that's quite a ways to come to Utah.
Yeah.
And he was the wild card at the Western Regionals.
If you're going to make me try to figure out how he's a wild card, that's going to be... I have to go down the whole list again. Oh, no, because, Austin Silva got a bid. Jesse got a bid. He was next up. Easy.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the Eastern folks. The folks that qualified for Race for the Rail 2021 from the Eastern Regional Qualifiers. Number one, Dom Williams. He came in and won. It was like his last chance to. He had been to.
He was stressed.
He was stressed out, and I don't blame him. Dom takes this stuff very seriously. When I was 17 years old and I was competing, and I mean it's different track and field. Like I was stressed out all the time because that's your life, right? Out of Asheville, North Carolina, and Dom is a reigning. 2019 Race for the Rail champion. So he won that when he was 15, 16 years old, which is great.
Crazy.
And we have a lot of young kids here. So what does that say, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fresh young competition where, like, for a moment, Dom was the young kid, who was just like fast as hell, didn't care about falling, But then now he's got some like new recruits under his belt, and they're coming for him.
They're coming for him. And like I said, that's what's going to be so cool about this year between the men's and the women's field is that you have people that are literally like the age spread is so wide. Like typically in any sport, like you get your one like white rhino older person that has stayed in for a long time and been riding forever. But like there is a wide spread. You have literally people from their teens all the way to their 30 pluses and beyond.
I was watching Crankworks like 2 weeks ago, and most of those riders are like 18, 20, upwards that way. And there's this 14-year-old kid on the slopestyle that came through and just like didn't smoke the entire competition, but like was very impressive. And I feel like that was Dom in his like first few stages.
Well, you never know. That might be Noah Build or Finn Holcomb, who we'll talk about in a second. But next up, Kyle Hansen. Such a cool dude.
Excellent. On the nose. Excellent.
I love Kyle. Second place at the Eastern Regional Qualifiers, hailing out of San Diego, California. Yeah, it's like you just put excellent because the dude has such a good personality, such a good vibe about him, and he's always just trying to have fun.
Totally. Wheel fun stuff.
Fun stuff. So I'm excited to see him race. It's his first race for the rail that he's competed at, as far as I know. So again, that's like something that for a lot of these folks, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 men that have never competed at a race for the rail. So that will be dope.
He's quick too. I think he was only like a second or two behind Dom on the Eastern.
And he tried that.
Oh my gosh, that's
drop.
right.
And remember the live stream cut out?
Yes.
And we were all like,
yes.
What did he do? What did he do? Because technically I think that was the faster line.
Yeah.
If you nailed it.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that.
Finn Holcomb was the first person all day to hit that line. And he nailed it during his run.
Yeah.
15 years old, one of the youngest dudes going to Race for the Rail 2021. Not only he got fourth place at the Eastern Regional Qualifiers, he was the wild card pick. But like 15 years old, and you are sending it before all these older dudes, or even Dom didn't even take the high line.
No,
Dom played it safe, and he took that like low line where you got to kind of nudge,
triple nudge action.
Triple nudge action. But Finn, I'm expecting some huge things out of Finn. I'm excited. He's out of Asheville, North Carolina as well. So he's coming across the country. I'm getting hyped now. I'm getting hyped up, Ted.
Well, there you have it. That's those are the racers that will be competing this year at Race to the Rail. I told you in the beginning, we went down this list for a reason. Lazy, you ready to break some more news? National headlines might make national headlines.
You think so?
I mean,
you're going to have to tell
probably.
them because I don't know.
Okay, here we go. Let me get a drink first. This podcast, Road to the Rail, is brought to you by insert drink sponsor here because we don't have one yet.
High quality H2O. All right,
We were saying it'd be sick to have like a Waterboy, we were just talking about Waterboy the movie. Waterboy at Race to the Rail.
Trying to figure out how insane we can make just like little cutoffs in the live stream production.
Yeah. Well, we're pretty good at pulling that stuff out of.
I mean, 2019 we had Jamie Juchter go through drywall, which that idea came up in this very room.
Oh my God.
Why don't we have them ride through drywall? Okay, boom.
Yeah, we definitely need a good surprise. But in the meantime, last year, back this up. I'm getting a little excited.
Should I do some sort of? I got one sound effect.
Give me the sound.
Okay.
Yeah, give me the sound.
Let's see it.
Hell yeah, that was dope.
All right, tell them, Ted.
All right, last year we had Team Delirium and Team Skyline. They had team challenges. They had a prize purse. All this good stuff. This year, we will be having 4 teams. Starting off, Team 1, the Legacy team. Check this out. Legacy jerseys.
Legacy jersey team Legacy will be consisting of Zoe Thomas, Raquel McCosker, Brendan Schermeyer, Dave Stewart, and lucky Tyler James gets to go on Team Legacy according to this document.
That is true.
That is
accurate.
true.
I made it.
So
Team Legacy will be in gray. I'm gonna put this. I guess you can see that.
And with the exception of Tyler, I guess not because Team Legacy was picked because these are people that qualified for Race for the Rail from last year.
Correct. Yeah.
And because Tyler's wild card spot was very unique in the sense that all of the riders voted for him, we're going to go ahead and throw him on Team Legacy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Way to go. That's exactly how it happened.
Boom.
Next up, we have the
Dun, dun, dun.
Central team.
Team Central, consisting of Rachel Payne, Allison Stanley, Neil Bennett, Bodie Harrison, and Ori Rush.
I keep wanting to lift up the right side of this, but I'm looking at it in mirrors. So yeah.
And each rider will have their own respective number, which will make it easier to keep track of them while they're racing, so on and so forth. But I really like that color, Ted.
Color's pretty dope. Next up, the Western team.
Bum, bum. Western team will consist of Gabby Soto, Lindsay McKeever, Austin Silva, Jesse Turpin, and Noah Bild. And to reiterate, this is not where these people are from, but this is where they qualified for Race for the Rail 2021.
Correct.
Yeah.
Last but not least, it wasn't in the mic. Last but not least, the Eastern team.
The Eastern team. Eastern team will consist of Christy Miller, Rachel Cecil, Dom Williams, Kyle Hansen, and Finn Holcomb will round out the Eastern team. So tell us about the significance other than where they qualified, but what are the teams going to do?
Yeah, so, last year we had the downhill descent, we had the relay race,
and the single track,
the enduro. And those led into a prize purse. This year is going to be a bit different, and it's not going to be this team won this challenge in X, Y, and Z. It's more of a representative way to see, okay, when they're racing the border cross style, we have Jesse Turpin on the Western team in blue going against Ori Rush in tan. And then you're kind of able to tell from there the different riders, where they came from, how they got there. There are still going to be a few team aspects of it, but more for
it's It's kind of like break the ice, having a little bit of fun before,
Yeah.
the riders really start getting to the headspace of competing in the finals.
And less of like, if we don't win this challenge, we're not going to get the extra $5,000.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with the way that last year went, just don't even think about that. It's going to be different this year, but we still like to provide opportunities for these riders to have fun, not just be completely like going crazy about the finals and everything.
Yeah.
They're all flying from all over the country. So I'm excited. It'll be a lot more mellow and chill, but also give them an opportunity to like do something different.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited. Anything else we should talk about before we sign off here on Road to the Rail episode 2?
Episode 2, this is a long one, folks. So if you've stayed this long, go ahead and comment below who you want to see for both men and women take home the 2021 Race for the Rail title. We'll talk about, what they'll win probably next week, maybe later on. We'll see.
I'm trying to think next week. So, we'll figure it out. I don't even know what we're doing tomorrow, to be honest.
It's all, we're just going with the flow. But go ahead, comment below who you expect to win or who you want to win for 2021 Race for the Rail. And let's get the conversation started. And pretty soon, sooner or later, you'll be able to really fill out who you want to win.
There you have it.
Jay.
Thanks for tuning in.
All right,
See you next week, Friday.